England have beaten Scotland 2-1 down in Nice in the Women's World Cup. I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible because there's a big talking point with the VAR, and I'm going to do a separate video on VAR at some point later in the tournament or when the tournament's done, because 2 games today have had big talking points about VAR that have affected the outcomes. Italy have had a couple of goals chalked off against Australia, and England have got a penalty. And yesterday, South Africa gave away a penalty in a similar circumstance to how England gained their penalty today with the unnatural arm position when the ball strikes it. Now, the wording of what handball is now is not if it's deliberate or accidental, it's the positioning of your arm in a natural or unnatural position. So make of that what you will. The VAR decision is given. It is a penalty according to VAR, and the wording, I think, looking at how other calls have been given in this tournament, it's hard not to argue against it, even though it's probably a harsh decision. And on another day, the VAR might not give it. But it is what it is. And, you know, for those who haven't watched the other games, I do suggest you go on the BBC iPlayer if you're here in the UK, or you go on whatever sports carrier you have in the country you live in or you're in, and you rewatch the full match replays and you see the VAR decisions for handball or offside, because it's a lot. The interpretation of these rules is different from the Men's World Cup last year. Same sport, but the rules have changed somewhat on referee's directive on offside, when do they give the flag, and what is handball. Nikita Parris scores the penalty, and after that England are on top. Lee Alexander in the Scotland goal was keeping Scotland in it. She can't keep out Ellen White on 39 minutes. England go in on top at half-time, 2-0. Scotland, they're still in the game. And this is the thing, England had all these chances, and if it wasn't for Lee Alexander, it could have been 5-6-0 by half-time. And I'm glad it wasn't, because it meant it was still a contest in the second half. Elmsley's goal comes from the fact that Scotland were the better side in the second half. They had a good high press, good energy. I wouldn't say they roughed up the England players, but they were definitely physical and they definitely disrupted the flow. And England, they took their foot off the gas a little bit and their eye off the boil, and aimless passing around the back leads to a mistake, leads to England coughing up the ball through Steph Houghton, passing it to the Scotland player, and it ends up at Elmsley's feet, and she, even though it takes a slight deflection, I think it's still on target. It's a great, powerful finish. And Scotland are now not only back in the game, but they're on top in the game. And although they lose 2-1, England at times in the second half, towards the end, were looking a little bit run ragged at the back. And you thought if Scotland got that second goal, it might become a third, and England could throw away a 2-0 lead and lose. They held on for the 2-1, and Lee Alexander in the Scotland goal, has probably been the best player on the pitch for me. But I'm an ex-goalkeeper, so I would say that I'm a bit biased there. But no, in all seriousness, if it wasn't for Lee Alexander in the Scotland net, it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 something. And I'm being deadly serious. The saves that were pulled off there have kept Scotland in the game even when it was 2-0, and it looked like if England scored again, it would be game over. And it gave them a chance in the second half to get that first goal. And when they got that first goal, to still be in the game come the final whistle. And it's unfortunate they couldn't take something out of it. But I think it is a fair result given the overall match. But England in the second half lost direction a little bit and lost focus, and allowed Scotland to, on their second shot on target, may I just add, to get back in the game. Back to the VAR. It's becoming a regular talking point in this World Cup already. We're only 3 days in, and nearly every match has had that. I don't think the Brazil game did, but I think every other match has had that VAR review. And I think, while the decisions are actually correct under the wording of the laws and the change of what is handball, because it's a very I think the way FIFA has worded the handball rule now is making it a bit more, dubious what is and isn't deliberate and accidental, the unnatural position of your arm. I just think if the ball strikes your hand or arm, it just should be a penalty or free kick. It's quite as simple as that. Other sports have very simple rules. Rugby union and rugby league with the knock-on, basketball with the foot foul, ice hockey with the hand pass. Rules like that, where if you do that, it's possession to the other side straight away. There is no questions asked about that. Although in ice hockey, it's just a face-off. But the game stops and there is a way to restart the game. Because the length of time spent on these VAR decisions for offside, because the linesmen are now less keen to put their flag up when they go with their gut instinct. And then you have these penalty VAR calls when the play's down the other end of the pitch and it's over a minute before the referee goes to the ear and does the signal. The way VAR has been implemented, it needs to be sped up a little bit, and I think the interpretations of some rules and some of the guidelines need to be looked at, because we're going to have the same arguments next year in the Euros, and in 3 years' time at the Qatar World Cup and at the Olympics, we're going to have these discussions, and it's going to be an ongoing theme for the next 4 or 5 years. I have no doubt. They've got to get this system right. If rugby union and rugby league and ice hockey and the NFL and these other sports can use video officials far better, why is it taking football so long to implement it, and now to get the teething problems sorted out? Other sports are far, far ahead, considering that they have less money in the sport. Football is the wealthiest sport in the world, and it's still getting VAR. I don't think it's getting the implementation right. The game itself was really good, but again, one of the big talking points is the video assistant referee. I think England going forward, they have to put in a 90-minute performance. Scotland going forward, they need to be a bit more positive early on in games. I think if they play like that second half for 90 minutes, they're going to be okay. They're going to get out the group. But if they allow themselves to be on the defensive too much and bossed around and not get enough of the ball and not have enough opportunities and goal, which was the first 60-odd minutes, they're going to struggle. So Scotland can take a lot from the game, but they have to implement their last 20, 30 minutes of the game into their game plan and their style of football that they play. They need to be on a high press, aggressive, high energy. England, they need to close out games better by keeping up the tempo, because they allowed themselves to slow the pace of the game down, and it just allowed Scotland back in. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Place your comments below, and I will have some more videos for you very, very soon.